We are sitting here in my office in the studios, and you might at home be seeing a flash of light. It's because we're arc welding across the hallway. And I said right before I came in, I love that look because for some reason it just makes me think of innovation. It reminds me of America when we were really charging. And the reason why I wanted to do this show is, and I hope this is just the beginning of a long relationship of trying to understand these things. America's either going to go into authoritarianism, the world is, authoritarianism, or it's going to be freer than it ever has been. And I'm counting on technology to empower people like they've never been able to. So if we just look at this chalkboard, the only thing really is up at the top that I think we need to cover is you get rid of the banks, right? Yeah. You get rid of the Federal Reserve, all of the central banks.
Yes.
You get rid of all of the stuff we think we need now because of old technology. And it is...
The dollar is old technology. That's a good way to put it.
It's almost just a barter system, right?
Trustless peer-to-peer system, direct transfer of funds, no trust in one central point of failure.
So I talked to my kids when I came home from Silicon Valley, and I said, kids, I want you to understand, they're in their 20s, and I said, I want you to understand, Dad knows nothing on this. This is just my gut. But I'm taking some of my money and I'm investing in Bitcoin, and I recommend any money that you have, you put a reasonable amount in Bitcoin, because if it works, A, it will guarantee some freedom, and B, it won't collapse as a system collapses, and C, it will go up in value, correct?
Correct.
And so it's a risky, I guess, at this point, but it's almost like looking at Edison and going, I just saw this light bulb and I don't even know how that works yet, but I think if it works, it's going to be huge.
For me, the revelation about Bitcoin was that when I discovered that it had a limited supply, I was very suspicious of it up until that time. I thought, well, look, nothing digital or electronic can actually have the properties of money, because you can infinitely reproduce it. That's the nature of the digital world. Then I discovered that the protocol severely limits the rate of creation, and it has an upward limit. That's what blew me away.
Explain to me, who's best at explaining to me, that's a thing that freaks me out a little bit, because everybody always says, oh no, we're setting this up, it's going to be like this forever, and no, there's nobody's going to touch. We're putting that into a lockbox. How many times have we heard that? Tell me why somebody can't go in and manipulate that system.
Well, there's social and economic forces at play, basically. So if you wanted to change this limit, there's about 21 million Bitcoins that are supposed to ever be in existence, and we'll get to that point. We'll be mined out of Bitcoins somewhere around the year 2140. If you wanted to change that, you would have to convince all these people running Bitcoin software that they need to agree to this change. They need to run a new version of Bitcoin based on this, changing this $21 million limit. But we know that investors all value Bitcoins based on everyone agreeing that there is this $21 million limit. If you try to extend that, it's going to debase their investment. Investors are going to dump their Bitcoins right away. They want to get out of it. Everyone knows this. And so there's no way you're going to convince people to switch over to this new version.
And so these servers that are all around the world, held by big people, institutions, or just individuals?
Anyone, really. Anybody can run a blockchain copy. Anyone, any node.
Okay. And so because of the blockchain, there is no way for it really to completely go down, right?
That's right.
Yep.
And that blockchain makes it secure.
It's forever. It's immortal.
Okay. All right. And then but the other side of that is, this is what my kids said to me. If I said I want to invest, $10,000 or $5,000, it's not the same as telling my 25-year-old kids, hey, $5,000. That's a lot of money.
Right.
And they said, but what happens if it doesn't work? And what happens if it goes down? And I said, well, then you lose your investment. There is no FDIC on this, but they're never...
Sure.
With that guarantee of FDIC comes all kinds of problems.
I mean, it's possible that Bitcoin, the right value of Bitcoin is somewhere between 0 and infinity. Nobody knows for sure. That's part of the fun of it. It's a real free market. It's not fixed by governments.
But of course, if you are a Bitcoin investor, if there is some fundamental problem with Bitcoin, what would we do? We'd simply take a copy of Bitcoin, fix whatever is wrong with it, and launch the next currency. And then people who are invested in it that understand how to acquire these cryptocurrencies would be in the ground floor of this next version of Bitcoin that would be, Bitcoin 2.0, and I think they would make massive amounts of money, even starting with a very small amount of funds.
Christoph, do you remember when the blockchain forked last April? It was about this time last year.
Sure.
I remember staying up late and I watched this thing happen. There was a confusion over confirmations, over some transactions. It was actually over a new block that had entered into the chain, and it had not received a sufficient number of confirmations to actually be wedded to the chain itself. And there was a temporary fork, and I was watching this. It was so exciting. It'll last about 20 minutes, and I was, watching this happen. And there was a controversy, there was an argument, there was a price dip, and then the community got together, they fixed it, reconfirmed, re-entered those Bitcoin into the chain again, and everything was beautiful again. That convinced me. This is a very carefully monitored system, and it's monitored by the global community. It's amazing to watch.
And there is no overlord or no chance of an overlord coming in.
Correct.
China just blocked this, right?
I think that they...
No, what they did was they passed some rules about whether you're able to convert renminbi or yuan or whatever you want to call it into Bitcoins at these exchanges.
But let me go to the flip side. In, I think it was Crete or Greece, where they said, we're going to start taking your savings.
Cyprus.
That's
Yeah,
what it was.
going into individuals' banking accounts.
And a lot of people put their money into Bitcoin, right?
Right, in April. That's why we had one of the major price bubbles that took place. But this is, again, a movement to give power to people around the world who can't depend on governments or even banks protecting their funds.
Could we continue this conversation in greater detail and try to break this up? Because, I mean, I do at this point. I don't see anything being able to free man. There is a currency collapse possible globally.
It could happen.
It could happen, and it grows more and more likely every day. And I don't see anybody doing anything but grabbing power and saying, you'll use this. This is the only path that I see towards
The other
freedom.
problem is the system as it exists is probably not going to be reformed to prevent
Right.
it.
No, it
we know
won't.
this.
I
The
know.
political elite are not interested in a gold standard.
I know they're not.
They're just not going to do
So
it.
I would love to be able to continue this conversation with you. I thank you guys so much for coming out.
Thanks for having
Yeah,
us.
thanks for having us.
Thanks.